All right, thank you so much. All right, we'll leave that there. All right, so here's the clicker. Nice to see everybody. And are you guys enjoying your lunch? Have you had a good morning and learned a lot of stuff? I'm so glad. Have you? Good. You know, I want to say it's always a pleasure for me to speak to people like you because truly, you guys are the experts. You know, people look to you and they look to you for information and they look to you for resources and they look to you for things that they need to know in order to live their lives with independence and dignity. So when I was asked to talk to you guys today, I thought I would talk to you guys today about something that's really important, and that is the basics. Let's just understand the basics of our market because we kind of work in a pretty complex market. And you know, we're really trying to live in a world where the world of our housing, which would be our social area, and our wellness. And I want us to talk about wellness because I like to talk about wellness rather than using fancy jargon related to medical care, but just where our housing and our lives and our wellness and our ability to remain independent are starting to merge. And it's a really great thing. How many of you think that it's confusing when people need care? Does anybody think it's simple, or are we all in agreement it's a confusing world? Okay, it's super confusing. So I tried when I thought that, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of time with y'all, but I thought, you know what, it's really great in some ways that it's confusing because we're getting closer to this vision that our government had back in the 1960s when they created the Older Americans Act. And they said, you know, we really want to be a country where when people age, they can live with dignity and respect and just, you know, have a really great quality of life in spite of the fact that they're aging. And I think we're getting closer to that. The problem is it's confusing to get people the right care based on what they need, based on what they want, really, quite frankly, right? So ensuring that all of us who are the experts, the people that are out there that are actually working with the people that are coming to us and looking for answers and resources, assuring that we have a really solid foundation in understanding housing and care options is the point of this talk here today. And I tried to break it down to make it, you know, to me everything is 1, 2, 3, ABC. You know, can we try to make something complex simple? Or at least a couple of points I'm hoping maybe from today that you can take with you, maybe even some of these, you know, the worksheets. I saw a very nice worksheet that was prepared by Mannor where they tried to, you know, take this really complex world and make it into a nice, simple sheet. But, you know, this session's really just a primer. It's the basics. If we were, you know, like sports, in the world of sports, this would be, you know, making sure that we're practicing making the, you know, the basket every time we step up to the free throw line, right? This is like, you know, yes, if any of you golf, this is, you know, making sure that we can make our putts. This is, you know, advancing the man on base if you're into baseball analogies. So ABC, affordability, and I'm going to even say availability. Affordability, the benefits and the challenges of the world that we live in. So I mentioned the Older Americans Act in the 1960s. Back then, you really, if you were aging and you needed care, you didn't have a whole lot of options. It was wonderful that the Medicare-Medicaid Act was signed into law in 1965, so we started to think about care for folks, but you usually lived with your family members or you went to a nursing home back then. Today there's many more options, and as we said, things are confusing, but I will say that I think the two areas where we're getting the most attention and the most traction, these are the areas that seem to be the most attractive to people, certainly are, one, aging in their own home, and that is the preferred option today. And now we're starting to look at assisted living, assisted housing, these places where people can go and still get the feeling of independence and lots of choices that they can make, but being able to get the care that they need when they need it. And maybe even privately, you know, so it's not, you know, I'm here because I need care, but, you know, I'm here, I'm living, I'm enjoying this quality of life, and if I need care, you know, I may purchase it or I may not. Or I may receive it or I may not, and it's not as public as it might be in another setting, okay? So it's private. How many times have you heard the word integration in the last couple of years? You hearing a lot of that? Everything's integrating, right? The Affordable Care Act, we're integrating, we're trying to think smarter and work smarter and really realize that, you know, the traditional silos that we've lived in the past are changing. Health insurance providers, care providers, government administrators, everybody's sort of focused on how can I find the best solution for people at the most affordable rate that makes them feel in control of their lives but gives them the care that they need. So we're all looking at that. Affordability in this world today is a big challenge. Would you agree with that? There's options out there, right? But people don't always have the resources to access those options. That's why we have workshops like this. That's why we've got lots of different providers that are trying to help people to tap into what might they be eligible for to help them. One of the biggest problems in finding resources to help make things affordable is the fact that the resources are still siloed for the most part. They either pay for this or they pay for that, and you've got to qualify one way or another, to see if the person is eligible. So most resources pay for either housing or care, but generally not both. But we all know that people need both. So this is our challenge as the experts in this field, I think. One of the things that I've been doing for many years is trying to find ways to coordinate housing and care funding sources. And sometimes it's easier when they live in their own home and that home is paid for, but even then, how many of us live in a home and are, whether it's paid for or not, and there's still costs that go along with maintaining that home, right? You gotta get that lawn cut, you gotta fix that leaky roof, you gotta, move the air conditioners in and out of the windows, you gotta repair the furnaces when they need to be repaired. So looking to try to coordinate places where you can get help on the housing side and places where you can get help on the resource side is a big, big challenge for all of us. In the last 5 years, we've come a long way, and what I want to talk about today is where are we today, and then I'm going to wrap up with where are we going, and what is it, what is it going to look like, because this is a dynamic time of change right now for all of us in this industry. So where we are today might look very different from where we're going to be in another 5 years. And I have a feeling that you all know that. So this is where we are today. This is where housing and care options integrate. Private home and apartment and living in their community that maybe they've been for a long time is the preferred option today. Independent senior housing is growing in appeal for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it's helps people to be social. It often provides the mobility resources that they need that are difficult for them to get in their home. And there is a slightly higher ability to be able to be monitored for your health and safety. And also to purchase the kinds of services that you need that can be delivered on an intermittent basis. Sometimes in the home, it's hard to get care in the morning and care at night. If you just need a little help getting out of bed and need a little help getting down for the night, that's a tough thing to do 7 days a week, right? Care companies wanted you to, buy 3 hours of care in blocks and other things. So these are some of the challenges. Assisted living is, I think, a huge growing area, and it's sometimes hard for people to tell the difference between independent senior housing and assisted living. And in some ways, they're very similar. In other ways, they're different. And I think it's the licensure aspect that makes them different. Assisted living tends to offer things that are a little bit more clinical in terms of care, and the care is delivered in in a way that has to be documented to meet clinical requirements. But nevertheless, it's still, I think, an assisted setting still provides, that level of independence. I mean, everybody's striving to try to make people independent in spite of the fact that, they're in a licensed setting, quote unquote. Lots of assistance with ADL and IADLs in that care. The fastest growing segment of the industry is memory care. So we've started to realize now as the population continues to escalate that it is a specialized level of care. It's also the most expensive kind of care that we offer for a variety of reasons. It's tough to provide care in that setting. Subacute and post-acute and nursing home care, again, lots of changes happening in this industry. Great stuff. Lots of opportunities to rehab people and get them into other settings that might offer an opportunity. Lots of bringing lots of person-centeredness into this industry. Lots of more choices than ever before here. This idea that if I go into a rehab or a nursing setting and to get rehab, that I am going to go home, right? Even the names are changing, whereas before people thought, okay, this is it. This is the last step before, I'm done. And then the continuing care communities, a combination of different types of settings. And it's really a combination of everything that you see here. So this is where the settings integrate. Now, paying for those is tough. The most flexible sources of funding that we have today can support the cost of both. We heard about today about some programs that support the cost of both. The VA benefit, yes, they have to have 2 activities of daily living, but this is a super duper benefit. The challenge is, for people who don't have that benefit. If you do have the benefit, it's wonderful. The most common funding sources are your own resources, your family, friends, people that are chipping in to sort of help you to receive care in any one of those settings that I just reviewed. Reverse mortgages can be helpful for care in the home. And long-term care insurance. I mean, how many of you work with people who have long-term care insurance? A couple of you. Is it common? No. I think it will be in another 10 years. I think we're going to see a little bit more of it, but it's definitely not common now. It's going to be interesting to see if, I think the generation of people like in their 70s or so who really don't, are still pretty independent are getting it a little bit more often. Their financial planners are encouraging it. It'll be interesting to see if that trend continues and if there's other incentives for that. Biggest challenge with long-term care insurance is the rates, and the changes in the rates make it really hard for people. Hospice can cover some care costs, especially on the inpatient end. We talked about Medicaid a little bit, helping out in the nursing homes, some group homes and some licensed homes. The Medicaid waiver actually can do a little bit of work in some of these areas, but the waiver is really not covering the cost of housing. And you heard from Elizabeth, and you heard from the folks here at Mannor telling you that. And then finally, Medicare. Medicare, right now, currently today, the only care that is covered by Medicare is short-term, and they do cover both the cost of your housing in your short-term rehab stay or your nursing home, and they cover the cost of your care. These are some of the sources that cover one or the other. Of course, area agencies on aging have programs that can help to subsidize the cost of care. That care has to be delivered in an unlicensed setting. So that would be either an independent housing setting or your own home. How many of you are aware of that? Beyond the waiver, that area agencies on aging provide some other supportive care for the home. A couple hands are going up. Keep that in mind, especially if you're in independent housing or working with people that are trying to stay in the community. The Medicaid waiver covers the cost of care. It can cover the cost of care in assisted settings, but I don't want to spend too much time on that because you heard a lot about that program. The biggest challenge for that program is qualifying medically. It really is. I think we've got it down in terms of qualifying financially if you have assets. Qualifying financially if your income is above $22.50 a month is, such a challenge. It's such a bummer that, people can't have access to other types of programs, and we heard about the need to advocate and to look for more flexibility here. PACE also is a program. PACE, it's an alternative. It functions very similar to the waiver program. It will not cover the cost of housing, but it does cover the cost of care. So, and this is coming to Oakland County. This is another care option to the waiver program. The challenge with PACE is the medical qualifications are exactly the same as the waiver. So if you're 100 years old and God love you, you have not had a major stroke, you just are frail and you're poor and you need a little support, you generally aren't going to qualify for the program. And that's, a challenge. And then, of course, Medicare in-home, skilled and hospice covering some care to come into your home, into your independent setting to provide care. There's lots of housing subsidies that are out there. The challenge with the housing subsidy is finding an apartment that's subsidized, getting a housing choice voucher without waiting, 5 years for it. Lots of other challenges. But I can tell you in my work that there are programs out there that try to marry these programs together to make things more affordable. Bottom line is the top 2 funders of care for people right now for housing and care is their own resources and their family's resources or Medicaid. And moving forward, as the population continues to age, we need more choices. Okay, for all of us who have the veterans benefit, I loved the information that was provided when I came in this morning about being very careful about this veterans benefit. We do want to be careful about that. The best thing to do is to call the county, call someone in the legal field. Be careful about paying someone to access a benefit that really we're all entitled to. That's just, you got to be careful. And I know that there's some really nice referral source people that are out there, but it's not really, it's something that we really have to be leery about, not something I would recommend. The benefits of living in your own home. How many people believe that everybody should stay in their home for as long as they can? Yeah, and I would raise my hand too. There's a lot of benefits to living in your own home. It makes you feel independent. It's important for people to feel that way. It's your own rules. It's familiar. The home is often paid for. It can help us to keep those housing costs down. Independent senior housing is more of a lifestyle choice for people that are looking for more, and I do think that it's also, bless you, a wonderful option for people. But I have to say, as a person who spent her entire career really working to keep people in independent settings, there are some challenges of people aging in place in their home, and we're going to see more and more of this as time goes on. I think the biggest challenge is social isolation and loneliness. Okay? Until we can have community programs that can help people to beat that, these are the reasons that people readmit. Oftentimes they understand medically what they need to do, but loneliness is hard for people. So they may feel independent and they may feel empowered, but until we can really figure out a way to get other people to break that down, there are some really great opportunities in other types of settings. I've talked about some of the minimum hours and the wait lists for the subsidized services. So if you've got resources, I think the home is a great place for you. If you don't have resources, you've got your area agency on aging and your Medicaid. But there are some times where it could be a challenge keeping someone in their own home, and that's why we look towards independent senior housing and other types of things where people can benefit from a little bit more opportunity to socialize, a little bit more opportunity to get intermittent care, a little bit more opportunity to put a care package together for you that can meet your needs. And the wait lists we talked about on the waiver, although those wait lists have improved dramatically, but they still exist. Assisted living this is the fastest growing industry in the country. Everyone and their brother is getting into this industry. So there's something attractive here about this industry. It's very good for people who need ADL and IADL support. The types of people that might benefit from this would include people who are at fall risk, people who need regular monitoring, right? It's just hard if you've got, we heard the example about, the child that can come and visit you twice a day. As people age, if they're starting to exhibit some of these behaviors where they're at fall risk or they need a lot of ADL, IADL prompting on the medications and other things, assisted settings work for people. Every assisted setting provides homemaking and laundry and transportation. It doesn't matter where you go, they're all providing the same things. Now they cost different rates, and they have different cultures, I think, if you live there in terms of what the people can offer. But there's a lot of services that are available, and Medicaid can help in some cases with the cost. The challenges of this setting, and there are some challenges. Number one, people don't want to leave their homes because they feel like if they leave their home, they're going somewhere to die. It doesn't matter if it's an assisted setting where they're actually going to do well and start socializing and actually improve, which actually is what happens, right? They get regular meals, they get their medication on time, and all of a sudden, boom, they're doing pretty good. They're afraid. They don't want the change. I can't tell you how scary it is for somebody coming into a setting like that for the first time. They look frightened. And, it's really, they look like it's the end for them. They look defeated sometimes. And so it's up to the job of the professionals and the people who are working with them to let them know that they're not. The biggest challenge, I think, is sometimes in assisted settings, they have all these pricing challenges, these pricing structures. And so they assess the person's need and then determine, what level are you at? And then, if you're at a lower level of care and you think, as you age, you might need more care, it's really hard to predict how much money are you going to need to actually live here? Right? These are the challenges that we have in that industry. And this industry really needs to address that, I think, for us as consumers moving forward. This is something that if you're going to counsel people, they need to ask a lot of questions as it relates to this. The other thing that they need to ask questions about, or at least try to negotiate or try to work with, is the annual cost increases on this, right? These costs in these settings go up every year, 2.5% to 5%. So if we're working with families or we're working in these types of housing communities, we need to be able to explain to people that, and sometimes we don't, right? We don't, these are the challenges for them. Their costs are going to go up. Memory care currently is the most costly. How many of you have ever are working in memory care right now? One? Okay. What's the cost of your memory care? $4,000 a month, and you can take care of it all. That's a good rate. What about other people? How much is it normally? 6, 7, 7,800. I mean, that's for a shared suite. Multiply that times 12, right? You're talking almost 100 grand, right? So this is a lot of money. Now, can the average person really afford to pay that? So this is what we really need to think about, right, when we think about looking at these settings, and this is the challenge that we all face, I think. And we're the experts in the field. We work with families to try to provide them with care that is reasonable care, and hope that I don't want to say hope, but hope that the illness doesn't go on longer than our resources last, right? And we talk about protecting our resources and how to do that, and what our care options are then. Nursing home care is, I think, really turning around. I'm seeing so much great stuff happening on the PT-OT side. We heard a great example that Rachel gave about trying to get more care. This PT-OT extension benefit is awesome. And really, truly, if people live alone, we shouldn't be afraid for them to go and get this care that they need. This is wonderful. I've got an uncle that's 100. His 99th year was rough. Like, he had the delirium that we heard the woman speak of. He did a lot. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for PT-OT, he's on lifetime PT-OT now. Lifetime PT-OT. He's 100. He'll be 101 in 4 months. And I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. This is the best Medicare benefit out there, by the way. It's the best Medicare benefit. They do a lot. They can, it's hard to get wound care, and even in licensed settings at times. It's, there is, this is a setting for people who truly need 24-hour nursing care. It's not just one wound that needs to heal. It's for people who are really going to need the setting. And I really think with all the competition that's out in the field, I'm starting to see at least a lot of improvements made in this industry. And the reason that these other industries are springing up is because, maybe there wasn't that competition, there wasn't that push to actually make these settings good, or better, or at least to continually to improve the quality of the care. So we're starting to see some positives there. The negatives are, I think the challenges, I should say, are the fact that people still are scared about nursing homes. Nobody's like, sign me up, I'm going to the nursing home. They're scared just going to the, nice assisted setting where they're, going to have their own private apartment and, be eating in a dining lounge and have to make new friends, right? Because that's hard, right? It's as hard as, moving to a new school when you're in high school, and your parents say, hey, we're in 10th grade, but we're moving to, which I happen to be a person that moved 4 times while they were growing up, and it was like, not again, and that's the kind of fear that people have. So I think for nursing homes, they're starting to overcome the negative perceptions. I think they're doing it because on the end of the wellness and the rehab end, but it's still hard. There's still those challenges where people think they're going there to die. And they think that actually whenever they leave their home sometimes. That's a challenge. I think skilled and nursing home care is very expensive. It is as expensive as memory care. It's actually more expensive than memory care. So you really don't want to, use this type of care unless you absolutely need it. And it is hard to determine the highest quality in the settings. Even if you go online and look at, what's online for the government, it's hard to tell a good one from a not. It's hard to tell where to put your loved one. It's just hard to make those decisions. There's not enough information online to do that. Oop. Oh, there we go. I got it. Ha, lucked out. Okay, and then there's continuing care communities. How many of you work in a continuing care community? Nobody here. Okay. A couple people. Very good. Thank you. What I love about continuing care communities is they offer, it's like the potpourri of options for people. What's the challenge, I think, for the continuing care communities is as they age, they still have to move. Okay, so a move across the street or across the campus or across the, the area is a move. And every time we move as we age, it's hard. It's confusing for us. We have to make new friends. We have to make new routines. It's scary, right? It's just like I said, in high school, going through high school, moving 4 times. Every time you got to move. My parents moved from one end of Troy to the other end of Troy. Guess what? It was still a move. It was still a new high school. It was still, new people. So I kind of feel that way about continuing care. What I love about the continuing care is it does support aging in community. So keep in mind that if an older adult or an older person cannot age in their own home, the second option that they really like to do is they like to age in their community. So if they've always lived in Birmingham and they can't live in their own home anymore, they still like to live in Birmingham. Why? Because they know the grocery person there. Their friends are close by. There's local transportation that doesn't have to cross boundaries, heaven forbid, and get them to see their friends, right? So this is why, this is helpful on the continuing care side. And we do, and here in Oakland County, we are blessed. There's a lot of options for us. It makes it super confusing, super competitive, which, could be a good thing from the pricing end, as it, for consumers. But I think that it's a great opportunity for people to be able to live with independence and dignity in one place. And even if you do have to move, and that's scary, the likelihood of some of the friends that you've made since you've made your move is higher, because you get, you get to see those friends. And I think, is Canterbury on the Lake is here, I think, today. Right, so continuing care community, right? Yeah, includes everything. Again, some of the other challenges would include these cost increases. So that's something else to consider, right? These cost increases, 2 to 5% a year, that's a lot, right? Does their Social Security go up that much? No. So, all right, so that's where we are today. Did I miss anything? All of you experts out there. Did I miss anything in terms of options? No? So where are we going? Where do you guys think we're going? Population's growing, so more people are going to need it. What else is going to happen? Costs are going to probably go up. What? People are going to live longer. We're going to run out of money. I mean, the overall country. Well, I think that along those lines, I kind of think where we're going is we need to find more creative ways to finance the care that people need. And we need to understand that, yes, we want to deliver care to you, and let's call it wellness, let's call it just, we want to give you what you need to be independent for those, activities of daily living, for those things that you need to live. But you gotta live somewhere too. You need a roof over your head, right? So these worlds are one and the same. You can give people the best care in a hospital, and then if they're homeless, I mean, how successful are they going to be, right? So we've got to understand that these two things go hand in hand. Where you live is a social determinant of how well the care options that we're giving you are going to work. So what's next in terms of affordability? I think you're going to see many more products that will integrate housing, healthcare, and even mobility, because mobility is huge as well. We still need to get people to the doctor. We still need to get to see our friends. We still need to get out once in a while. We could have the greatest, and you see these great communities, where it's like everything you need is here, but people still need to get out. We need to be engaged in the community that we live in, right? If we had to move from our home, we want to be in the community. So I do think that we're going to see more along those lines. I do think that the government and health plans, in particular, the insurance companies, are really wise to this. They're the ones that are paying the bills. They're the ones that are really changing public policy in terms of readmissions and other care costs. Just recently, there has been some changes in, did you want to?
Yeah, quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever have Section 8 subsidies for assisted living facilities?
Right now, technically, the housing choice voucher can be used in assisted settings. That's a national rule. I don't know if you've ever known that, but they can be used in assisted settings. The government at the federal level does not define what assisted setting is. And actually in Michigan, we have not started to use that housing choice voucher the way we can. It's because they only release so few of them, and there is such a wait list of them. But the fact of the matter is that the structure is set at the federal level to allow that to happen. And in fact, at American House, when I was with the Area Agency on Aging, we were actually mirroring the My Choice waiver and the Section 8 traveling voucher. We were doing that And there's people here that are shaking their heads because they actually were the people that did it years ago. They're doing some other things. Absolutely, absolutely. So I definitely think that that's going to continue to happen and that kind of integration will continue. But right now, care is being driven, really, and policy change is being driven by the health insurance industry. And the health insurance industry, the federal government just changed the guidelines to, for the first time, allow Medicare to be able to cover the cost of activities of daily living, not just skilled care. Now, how is that going to translate to all of these other options? It's going to translate. I think that you're going to start to see tons of improvements on the home care side, lots of assistive equipment and devices that are going to be able to help people to remain independent. Those things are going to be coming, I'm positive, to independent senior housing and assisted housing. So look for more technology, more opportunities to monitor care behind the scenes, again, so it's not just I'm walking around with a pendant on me, but telehealth and lots of other care options are coming for people. I think the challenges will continue to be, we're going to really want people to be well. Our challenges will continue to be balancing all of these wellness and housing options with the resources that we have available and making sure that people are using those resources to the best way possible. So that's where we're going, I think. So I think we're at a perfect time as I look around this room and I look at all of you, and some of you I recognize. I know you've been in the business for a while. I do think we're at the perfect time to understand that cool things are going to continue to happen in this field. I think the challenge for all of us is understanding the basics. So I hope that this little presentation gave you a little taste of what the basics are, what's out there now. So you can make that putt, you can advance the runner, you can give people at least some of those resources that they need to make the decisions that are in the best interest of them and their loved ones. Any questions? Quick one? Yep.
You briefly just mentioned about this new Medicare
Mm-hmm.
benefit allowing for ADL. Do you think that that's going to drive the reward increases up? I'm assuming that's like a nursing home benefit, not necessarily.
No, that is actually a benefit that we're going to see in the home and community-based side. I think it'll be a benefit that'll benefit home care companies, and that at least it'll be a new revenue source. And I think it'll benefit assisted settings. Do I think one thing the government gets really mad about is if they give a new benefit and we use it to like plug a hole and raise costs, they don't like it. So how is it actually going to roll out? We got the folks from Mannor here. They probably, there's a call letter that's been issued. I think they're going to be really, really careful about it. But I think it's just the beginning. And I think right now it's only going to be offered on the Medicare Advantage side. So keep in mind that on the Medicare Advantage side, 33% of people with Medicare are in the Advantage plan, 66% are still in the traditional Medicare plan. I think we're going to see more people, and we've already started to see it, move over to Advantage so that they can tap into these really, one of the things I learned when I worked at the Area Agency on Aging is for a small amount of care per day, sometimes, people can really be very independent. The cost of a home-delivered meal is $5. Just getting that nutritious meal with that extra is huge to people. So I think I'm really hoping that we don't see the cost shift, and I think the government and the Medicare Advantage plans are super smart, way smarter than me I'll ever be, or I'm not going to say any of you in this room because you all look like very smart people, but they're going to figure out a way to make sure that benefit gives them a bang for their buck, and that bang for their buck means that the person or the family member will be independent and thriving. Well, that's a whole nother talk. That's a Medicare counseling talk. There's a lot of benefits to traditional Medicare. Mark my words, as this thing continues to spread, Medicare, managed care, and Medicare Advantage is pretty big in our future. I think our government will continue to incentivize. They've made so many changes. Even the PACE program now is moving to the regular Medicare population. They've actually expanded. They can take Medicare only now instead of dual eligible. So I think, I'm not saying I would recommend an Advantage plan, and Lord knows there's a million of them, by the way. I want to say, I can't even tell you how many. I think there's like probably 50 different, options within the different folks, but I definitely think that's the area where things will expand. All right. Great. Well, thank you for sharing some of your time with me. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you so much.